thigh. The back of thigh extends from the gluteal fold about the back of the knee below. The back of the thigh is also called as the flexor compartment. Cutaneous innervation. The skin of the back of the thigh is supplied by the following nerves. Posterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh runs downward in the midline of the back of thigh, deep to fascia lata, and superficially to the long head of biceps femoris. On reaching the popliteal fossa, it pierces the facial roof of the fossa and accompanies the short saphenous vein down to the middle of the calf. Its branches supply the skin on the back of the thigh and proximal part of the back of leg. Cutaneous branches of the obturator nerve supply the medial and upper part of the back of thigh. Medial branches of the anterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh supply the medial and the lower part of the back of the thigh. Lateral cutaneous nerve of the thigh sends twigs to the posterior aspect of thigh in the upper part. Contents of back of the thigh. The contents of the back of the thigh are as follows. Muscles. Hamstring muscles. Nerves. Sciatic nerve. Arteries. Arterial anastomosis on the back of the thigh. Muscles on the back of the thigh. These muscles on the back of the thigh are called as hamstring muscles. However, conventionally the short head of biceps femoris is not included in the hamstring group. The back of thigh muscles were named hamstrings because the tendons on the back of knee are used to hang up hams. Hip and thigh regions of animals, example pigs. The hamstring muscles are semitendinosus, semimembranosus, biceps femoris, long head, ischial head of adductor magnus. The hamstrings share the following characters. They take origin from ischial tuberosity. They are inserted into one of the bones of the leg. They are supplied by the tibial part of the sciatic nerve. The muscles act as flexors of the knee and extensors of the hip. Semitendinosus. It is so named because its lower half is tendinous. Origin. From the inferomedial impression on the upper part of the ischial tuberosity, in common with the long head of the biceps femoris. Insertion. Into the upper part of the medial surface of the tibia, behind the sartorius and the gracilis. Nerve supply by tibial part of sciatic nerve. Action. Chief flexor of knee and weak extensor of hip. When the knee is semi-flexed and the hip is extended, semitendinosus is the medial rotator of leg. Semimembranosus. It is so named because this broad muscle is half membranous. Origin. From the upper lateral part, quadrilateral area of the ischial tuberosity. It lies deep to the semitendinosus and long head of biceps femoris. Insertion into the horizontal groove on the posterior surface of the medial condyle of the tibia. It gives 3 fibrous expansions. The oblique popliteal ligament, fascia of popliteus, tibial collateral ligament. Nerve supply by tibial part of sciatic nerve. Action: medial rotator of leg. Chief flexors of knee and weak extensor of hip. Biceps femoris. As its name implies, consists of 2 heads, long head and short head. Origin: long head. It arises from lower medial impression of the ischial tuberosity in common with the semitendinosus, and also from the lower part of the sacrotuberous ligament. The sacrotuberous ligament is the morphological remnant of the long head of biceps femoris. Short head. It arises from the lower part of the lateral lip of the linea aspera and upper 2/3 of the lateral supracondylar line between adductor magnus and vastus lateralis, also from lateral intermuscular septum. Insertion: the tendon is either folded around or is split by the fibular collateral ligament. It is inserted into the head of the fibula. Nerve supply: long head by tibial part of sciatic nerve. Short head by common peroneal part of sciatic nerve. Action: chief flexors of knee and weak extensor of hip. When knee is semi-flexed and hip is extended, biceps femoris is the lateral rotator of leg. Ischial head of the adductor magnus. Origin: it arises from the inferolateral part of the ischial tuberosity. Insertion: it descends almost vertically downward to be inserted on the adductor tubercle. The primitive part of adductor magnus is represented by the tibial collateral ligament, which is attached from the adductor tubercle to the medial condyle and upper part of medial border of tibia. Nerve supply: the adductor component of the adductor magnus is supplied by the obturator nerve. The ischial part is by tibial part of sciatic nerve. Sciatic nerve. The sciatic nerve is the thickest nerve in the body. It is about 2 centimeters wide at the beginning. Origin and root value. This is the largest branch of the sacral plexus. Its root value is L4, L5, S1, S2, S3. The tibial part is formed by the ventral divisions of the anterior primary rami of L4, L5, S1, S2, S3. The common peroneal part is formed by the dorsal divisions of the anterior primary rami of L4, L5, S1, S2. extend and course in the back of thigh. It begins in the pelvis and terminates at or just above the superior angle of the popliteal fossa by dividing into tibial and common peroneal nerve. It passes through the greater sciatic notch and appears below the lower border of piriformis muscle, undercover gluteus maximus. It then emerges below the lower border of gluteus maximus and appears on the back of thigh. It passes downwards deep to the long head of biceps femoris, resting on adductor magnus. At the superior angle of the popliteal fossa, it divides into tibial and common peroneal nerve. Branches. Articular branches to the hip joint arise in the gluteal region. Muscular branches may arise in the gluteal region or in the upper part of the thigh. The tibial part of the sciatic nerve supplies the semitendinosus and semimembranosus. The long head of the biceps femoris and the ischial head of the adductor magnus. The common peroneal part supplies only the short head of the biceps femoris. Arteries of the back of the thigh. The arteries of the back of the thigh are terminal parts of the profunda femoris artery. The lateral circumflex femoral branch of the profunda femoris artery and the medial circumflex femoral artery. The main supply is through the perforating branches of the profunda femoris. Perforating branches of the profunda femoris artery. The profunda femoris artery gives off 4 perforating arteries. They arise on the front of the thigh. Then they pass through the 4 aponeurotic origins of the adductor magnus attached to the linea aspera and wind round the back of the femur. They ultimately end in the vastus lateralis. The first perforating artery arises just above or on the upper border of the adductor brevis. The second in front of the adductor brevis. The third immediately below the adductor brevis. And the fourth is the termination of the profunda femoris artery. The perforating arteries gives off muscular, cutaneous, and anastomotic branches. The second perforating artery, sometimes the first or third, gives off the nutrient artery to the femur. Anastomosis on the back of the thigh. At the back of the thigh, each perforating artery divides into ascending and descending branches close to the insertion of adductor magnus. They anastomose with one another, forming an arterial chain at the back of thigh. The ascending branch of the first perforating artery takes part in cruciate and trochanteric anastomosis, and the descending branch of fourth perforating artery anastomosis with branch of the popliteal artery.